Hello everybody and welcome to the studio. I'm Julia and this is Senior Susie Stamps. I've been looking for a little gift for my studio that I can kind of keep on hand, and I was looking for some notepad covers and stumbled across one that I just really liked. It's super simple to make, and I have a little girls' day out coming up, and so I thought I would make some just to see how easy or not they were. This was originally a design from Michelle Allen, and the name of the YouTube video was Notepad Covers, a Tutorial, and I will link that down below for us today. Now, I have purchased some gold pens, and they're little short ones like this. They are just a ballpoint pen, and they work pretty well. And I've also purchased some little lined notepads. Both of these came from Amazon. I'll link those also down below. One thing I wish I had noticed, these are only about 1/8 of an inch thick. They've got 30 sheets of paper on them. I wish they had been just a little bit thicker, because these are designed for a 1/4 inch notepad, just so you know. They work just fine with these. There's no issue at all. But come on, and let me show you how simple these are to make. Now, you're going to need a piece of colored cardstock, and what I found was a heavier weight cardstock really gives you a nicer product in the end. This one's a little lighter weight, and it's just a tiny bit on the flimsy side. Not saying that it can't be stiffened up. I've added 2 sheets of designer paper to the front of this, and there is, of course, designer paper on the inside of these. I guess maybe we should go through and look at these. I've covered the notepad on each one of these with an extra piece of paper, because again, these notepads were not expensive, and this sheet was not as heavyweight as what I had hoped it would be. So isn't he a cutie pie? Yeah. So all of it's covered on the inside. Now, on some of them, like this one, I didn't cover the diagonal flap, but we will do that today, because on most of them I did. But aren't these sweet? And I think it's just a nice little studio gift to let people know that I'm a paper crafter, and in case they want to come hang out with me. So let's get started. I have a little diagram first of all, and we're going to cut an 8.5 by 11 piece of cardstock down to 8 5/8 by 8.5. So it's going to be 8.5 long and 8 5/8 inches wide. So that's the first step, and I've already done that. And you will need a scoreboard for this. It's not one of those projects that you can do really well without a scoreboard. Now, I have some cardstock that I've had in my collection for quite a while. It has never been exposed to direct sunlight, and I don't know if you can see it or not, but there is fade here. Even though it was on a wall that never got sun, this still happened. So I encourage people with your colored cardstock not to have them out in the room. I keep mine now in a metal filing cabinet with the door closed, and that protects your cardstock so that you don't have this kind of little bit of fade going on. So I'm going to start on the 8 5/8 inch side, which is your longer side. Not by much, but just a little bit, and it does make a difference. Before we get too far into this, you're going to have a smaller side and a larger side, and you'll want to keep track of that. So the score lines are going to be at 1/2, 3 3/4, 4 1/8, 4 1/2, and 8 1/8. That's a 1/2 inch off of both ends, and I'm going to take it both off of this side because I'm right-handed, and it's much easier for me to do that 8 1/8 inch score and then turn it and score it again at 8 1/8. And that takes that 1/2 inch score into effect. For me, it's just easier than trying to get over here and do it. So now the next score is 3 3/4. And we're coming all the way down. And be careful with your scoring tool that you don't poke a hole in your paper, because that won't be a nice end product if you do. Next one is 4 1/8. And then 4 1/2. So be aware that you have a larger side, and at this point now it's on the right, so I'm going to turn that to the top so that I'm starting my score on the larger side, and I'm going to score it at 5 1/4. And that's all the scoring I need to do. So let's go through that again, just so we know. It's 1/2, 3 3/4, 4 1/8, 4 1/2, and 8 1/8. And then we rotate it counterclockwise and score it at 5 1/4. That's all the scoring we need to do. I'm going to put my scoreboard away. So now what we're going to do is take some cuts, and we're going to cut this section off, and we're going to cut our little angles out just to give ourselves a little more room on our scores. We're also going to put a cut in for our pen holder, and I'm going to measure down 1 1/4 and 2 inches, and then cut across all of those score lines. So let's do that now before I forget it. I'm going to turn it with the larger end towards me. So the 5 1/4 inch score is here, and then I'm going to measure down on this first score line up to the middle score line there at 1 1/4 and at 2 inches. So then I can fold on the middle of those 3 score lines and get my scissors and cut into the score line. And what we're doing there is creating our little pencil or pen holder. And there we go. That's all we have to do there. And since we've got it folded here, we might as well fold the rest of them and get those burnished in. Let's do that. It doesn't really matter how you fold these, because you can manipulate them any way you want to once they're burnished in a little bit. But you want to have your narrower side on top, and then we're going to fold the rest of them in. Just to get the paper to break over a little bit. There we go. And then we can fold this one up. And all the while I'm keeping my wider side on the right hand side there. Okay, so while we've got it folded up like this, let's cut our little E's off of these little spots right there, because we can cut them both at the same time that way. And I'm going to cut the top also. Now you'll notice I didn't cut this one yet, and there's a reason for that, and I'll show you here right now. What I want to do now with the wide side on the right, I'm going to measure from this point here over 3 1/4 inches. Right there. And then I'm going to take my ruler and put a line in here. And this one is already, this score line here is at 3 1/4. So I'm going to do the same thing over here, and I'm just going to cut this out. So we're going to cut in here and then cut across this way. Okay? Let's do that now. And I'm going to do that by cutting the 2 angled lines in. And then we'll flip these up and get them out of the way so that I can cut this across and I don't have to fight it with my scissors, and you have a nicer product that way. So you can see what I was talking about, that fade line there. It's going away for us. Now, I'm going to do this angle cut here by folding this back and cutting at the same angle that we just cut. And that way, the thickness kind of goes away. We're going to cover that up anyway, but it takes the thickness of the additional paper up there out of the equation for us. Now all we have to do is glue this up, and we'll put our papers in, and we'll have another nice little covered notebook studio gift to give away. And I do like to burnish, and if you're using liquid glue, which I do on these kinds of things, you need to be careful and not over glue so that your glue pushes out. And if you do have some glue that comes out, try to get it up with your finger. And that's all you have to do. Now on this side, I'm going to glue here and we'll fold it up. Once you do one of these, you'll see just how easy they are to make. There we go. I'm going to take my little tool and burnish that in. And you'll have a little, nice little gap here that goes all the way down there. So let's do the other side. This little fold structurally adds quite a bit to these little notebooks with having this little 1/2 inch thickener on the outside that way. And we're going to cover all that up with designer paper so you won't see that seam at all. I'm going to get that glue out because otherwise it'll lock your corner up and you won't be able to get paper down in there. This one I'm going to fold up and glue the other side and bring it up to match the top. And there we go. And there we are. Now what we want to do is push our little pencil pen holder out and fold this down like that. So what we have is something that looks like this. And on your thicker side, that's on your right side, we're going to glue this piece here down. And that makes a little flat spot then for your pen to rest and stay. And I'm going to take my tool and burnish that down. There we go. And so now you can see you've got a little pen holder. You've got a pocket to put your notepad in. You've got another pocket to put whatever you want to in. And it's just a sweet little, looks like I need a little more glue right there. Just a sweet little notepad holder. There we go. Okay. Now I've got some papers here. And these are 3 by 5. And I cut one for the front. So this one's going to go on the front. And then I cut 2 for the insides, here and here. And what I did was to take a 12 by 12 piece of paper and cut a 3-inch strip off of it. And this is the top part of that strip. I'm just going to leave this long for now because this is what's going to wrap around our notepad when we get to that point. I have a couple of extra scraps here that I may want to put my little sentiment up on. And then I have a 3 by 3 corresponding piece of paper that I just cut on the diagonal. And we're going to glue that in next. And I like to glue mine right up to the diagonal line. And And that way, when I'm gluing these pieces in, I can move them over to match that line and check my top and my side margins. And then I hold it here and pull it back and glue it in. There we go. So there's that side done. And now we'll do this one. So I'm going to glue my little triangle down. All the way to the edge. And burnish it down. And then on this one, I'm just checking the position. That looks good. And then I'll hold it securely and glue it in. And there we go. And then I'm going to put the front cover on. I'll get my tweezers. And there we go. I'll burnish that down. And I think I'll mount my little Happy Day to You up on the green, just for contrast, and trim around it. These are nice for teacher's gifts, if you have a little church secretary, if you have Sunday school class, if you have a bunch of girlfriends, a waitress at your table. You know, these kinds of things are not expensive to make. You're using primarily scraps, and they can impact somebody else's life with just a little cheerful moment. And they fit well in a clear card sleeve if you have those. I'll show you that at the end. So this one is done. Now we're going to do the notebook, but before we get any further, I want to stamp the back because I seem to forget those. I am going to use my VersaFine ink because it's going on purple cardstock, which is a little on the darker side. There we go. And now I always check my pen to make sure that it's working. And it is. And it's going to live right here. There. Need a little more glue right here on this corner so that you can slip it in or out of your purse without it tearing back. There we go. Now let's look at the notepad. So what I want to do is come around, and I'm sure you probably can't see this, but there's a perforated line right there. So that's as far up as I want to come with my little cover here. And I'm going to hold it in my hand and make that first fold there, and then fold it again back behind it. And then I'm going to come in with my glue, and it doesn't need to be glued down any further than here. And I put a pretty good amount of glue on these. Especially that top part there. But not enough, hopefully, that it will squirt out on me. And then I'm just going to lay it down, position it on my notepad, and bring my top over. And I'll take my little bone folder and make my square corners look nice. So the 3-inch piece that was left over works very well for that. And then I can just trim this end off. Looks like I need maybe a little tiny bit more glue on this little end down here. There we go. The chipboard on the back of these little notepads was nothing to brag about, I can tell you that. And this little extra piece of paper helps to stiffen that up some. Now I'm going to take my scissors and trim just alongside of that notepad to get that little extra bit of designer paper cut back off of it. And check here and see if I need any off the front. And maybe a little bit on this side. Just to trim it out where it looks right. And it looks nice and professional to come out of your studio. And there you go. So that one's all done. Now I open it up, slip it right down in there. And when you open it up, you've got a nice covered top on your notepad. And here it is. And it fits in a clear A2 size card cover. So I'll put the rest of these back in their covers, and these 6 will go with me for Girls' Day Out, which I'm leaving for shortly. So I hope you all have a good day and a good week, and that you'll think about making some little gifts to have on hand to advertise yourself as a paper crafter, so that people know that you have a special hobby in your life, and maybe they'll ask you about it and become interested in paper crafting also. So have a great week, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye, everybody.